And good evening, and welcome once again to, well, the new page of the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and guess what time it is? It's time for an unabridged, no interruptions version of New Comics Bitches! So it feels good to say. Anyway. So it is, what, today's the 22nd. So, with that in mind, we have some pretty exciting things coming up this week. Later, and this will be on the normal channel, the Donnelly 92274 channel, and that will be my review of one of the issues of Watchmen that's in our giant comic book community crossover that we're all doing an issue from Watchmen. I hope that you'll enjoy it. But for tonight, we're going to be doing New Comics Bitches! So, this is going to be a rather short, it's not going to be overly long, but this is all going to be one segment. So, if you will, for your entertainment pleasure, we'll light up a smoke, and you guys are going to join me as I review some comics. Okay, first we're going to get to the stuff. Well, the only books that I'm really going to talk about are the ones that I thought were really interesting or really cool this week. Most of the other ones I'm just going to kind of blow through. The ones that weren't so interesting or weren't so terrific, well, okay. So let's start with, let's just say, for an example, okay. Amazing Spider-Man Ends of the Earth special with Union Jack and Big Hero 6. Now, Union Jack, if you know anything about Union Jack, which you should, because if you don't, I'll kill you, because Union Jack is one of the coolest Marvel heroes that there is, and has had only two really excellent, but unfortunately not very popular attempts to really capitalize on his name and on his persona. And those were a miniseries, a great miniseries by Ben Rabb and John Cassaday on art. And it was a 3-issue series. Because basically Union Jack, he's been around for quite some time. He was a member of the Invaders with Captain America and Namor and Bucky and the Human Torch and Toro and, you know, those guys. And then that was the original Union Jack. That was Lord Montgomery Falsworth. And then his son was another Union Jack, but he died. And then he grew. It was very old. This is in the, I believe, the early '80s. Captain America. I think it was Roger Stern and David Byrne were doing this, and they created a new Union Jack, which was actually the best friend of the original Union Jack of Montgomery Falsworth's son. And his name was Joey Chapman. He was a very working class young man. And he basically took up the mantle. Not only is Union Jack he's an operative for MI5, but he's also a vampire hunter. And I think that both facets of those characters, both facets of this character are really cool, and I think they should really be used to their best potential. Now, the second one, the first one was much more about his vampire hunter persona. The second one is much more about his MI5 persona, in which basically it was called London Falling, and it was a 4-issue mini with written by Christos Gage. And I believe the artist was Mike Perkins. And it was a terrific miniseries. It was kind of, I think it was around the time, no, I'm thinking of Captain Britain and MI13. Anyway, it was really cool. It was really great. I loved it, but it was only 4 issues, so that's as much mileage as they could really see to get out of Union Jack. So he's always been one of my favorite characters, and so I thought that his tale was really interesting. Because there are 2 parts, like I said. There's the Union Jack part, which does mix in Sabra, which is an Israeli agent who was also in the Union Jack miniseries, the second one. And then also there's Kangaroo Man, whatever the hell he is. Now it seems like some of these other characters actually bite it. Now I'm not too sure. I wasn't too clear when I read it because I didn't buy it. I just picked it up in the comic book store and read it because my comic book store is cool that way. But so that segment was really cool because you get to see Union Jack do some really cool shit. But then there's a second segment, which is about Big Hero 6. And since I don't have any clue who those people are, I wasn't very interested to begin with, so I didn't really take a whole lot of notes when I was reading it. I just thought it was kind of cool, but not really. So I kind of wrote it off. It's about it was a 3 out of 5 to me. It was, aside from the Union Jack stuff, it was pretty much forgettable. But of course, didn't have the benefit of being written by Dan Slott or anybody who really seems to know these characters well. So, with maybe the exception of Big Hero 6, because I don't know who created them, I don't know who wrote them. All I know is that I didn't care. Batwoman number 9. I'm just going to bounce around here because, like I said, I'm just kind of doing this haphazardly because this is, like I said, this is more of an experiment. Batwoman number 9. So we have Trevor McCarthy now as the artist, and because Amy Reeder left due to some kind of issue that she was having with DC. So where she's gone, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me, but this was an interesting point that my friend Ghost Critic pointed out, is that all of the other artists seem to be kind of aping, I think was actually even the word that he used, J.H. Williams' style of art. Because I think, and as I said on his video in the comments section, I do think that one of the main draws to the character of Batwoman and to this comic was J.H. Williams. And it was not so much his story, but his art. Because his art never fails. His art is always incredible. So I think that the art has to outweigh the story. Because the story, admittedly, especially in this particular arc, which feels incredibly disjointed and is really rather confusing. Well, we have some interesting things going on in this issue. Like we have, stuff with Kate and, potentially maybe a new kind of love interest for her at the end, as well as perhaps the defeat of Falchion. I don't know. See, that's kind of the point that I'm getting to, is that's really confusing, and the fate of Bet, because we kind of see her crashing in the hospital. And so that was kind of a shocking moment that they didn't spend more time on that. They didn't devote more time to that. So Trevor McCarthy's art is really J.H. Williams-esque. And like I said, because I think that the art is the big selling point for this book. Now, when Greg Rucka was writing it and J.H. Williams was just doing the art, it was a much stronger book. Because he really, he created this Batwoman character, or this new version of Batwoman, because, originally she was, a kind of pre-Silver Age, not quite Golden Age character, but maybe, where she was created, and also the character of Batgirl, Bet Kane, was created to basically push this whole idea that the seduction of the innocent and Frederick Wertham advanced, that they were like the ideal homosexual couple as far as Batman and Robin were concerned. So they wanted to create these love interests, these counterparts to them. And of course, so Rucka very smartly created this new character, this new Batwoman, whose name also was Kate Kane. Was originally Kathy Kane, this is now Kate Kane. And, and she is, a quote-unquote lipstick lesbian, so I guess that's, that's basically means that she's a really attractive lesbian. But she's, as far as a character is concerned, she's actually a really great character, and she can be better. And I think that's where this book is falling short, is that it's just not doing everything it needs to advance this idea of this character. So, I thought it was about a 3.5 out of 5 overall, because, like I said, the art is really strong, the story just really isn't that great. But again, it's someone, Trevor McCarthy really seems to just be copying J.H. Williams' style. So, moving along, we have Catwoman, number 9, which was, it's a tie-in to Night of the Owls, and basically we have her and, I believe it's Shock, who is trying to steal one of these last, this kind of last of this collection of 5 knives that has basically was used by a Talon back in the, I don't know, the 1800s or something like that, the 1700s, I can't remember exactly what. And they're going to steal it from the Penguin. Of course, the Penguin has been marked for death by the Court of Owls. So basically, as they come in to steal this, or as they're about to steal it, they see this Talon, who's basically kind of living out this mission. He's been awakened for this mission in shame, and so they basically they both crash in to try and save the Penguin, and this whole kind of huge melee ensues, and they always think they've got the upper hand, and of course it's really Penguin who does kind of blow this Talon's head off with one of his gun umbrellas. But Catwoman recognizes kind of a kindred spirit, because she believes that the parents, as you will, which in this case is the Court of Owls, have really fucked this guy up. And so she like I said, she sees kind of a kindred spirit in there, because she has her own fucked up childhood. Now, how that's been maybe rehashed, or how it might be rebooted or retconned in the New 52, we don't know yet. And that would be something I'd be actually interested to read, because Judd Winnick is actually, has been doing a good job on this series, better than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. And Guillaume March's art, as always, is really good. Again, it was a fine issue. I didn't think it was particularly great or anything like that, and I didn't think it was very bad. So it's about it's about a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, I mean, it just wasn't anything extraordinarily memorable. Wonder Woman, number 9. Here again we have I can't remember the artist who was doing it, but it's the same guy who kind of took over, or it's the same artist who kind of took over for Cliff Chiang when he decided to skip an issue or so a couple issues ago. And it's basically the whole kind of idea of this wedding in hell between Wonder Woman and Hades. And Hades is kind of presented, we really kind of get more into, because as Azzarello had stated early on in this run, that he was going for a more kind of horror approach, this kind of mythological horror tale, rather than a straight-up superhero tale. And in which case, he actually has succeeded very well, because it has had some moments of really strong mythological horror to it, but not until really this issue. This issue really kind of gets to the meat of kind of the scarier stuff of mythology, of Greek mythology anyway. And but we have Hades kind of being presented as this kind of this very lonely soul, if you will, and he's he has kind of the lording of more people than any of the other gods because of all of the souls in the underworld. And basically, Wonder Woman seems to be very well, she seems to be very obsequious with Hades, telling him that she loves him and that she'll do anything for him. And we do see a little bit of the wound that she suffered from Eros's guns that we saw in the last issue. And basically when they basically Hades doesn't really believe her, says that I'm going to give you a ring before we wed. I know it's not tradition, but here it is, and it will divine the truth of how exactly you feel about me. And of course, as they get there, it's a noose made out of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was very interesting. And the opening was really quite disturbing, as war and strife are basically there, and looks like a suicide bomber has just blown themselves up. And that's kind of how it kicks off. So I mean, from right there, it starts off in this really bizarre and very unnerving way. So this was a really strong issue. So I mean, in retrospect, as I think about it, the stronger that I think it is. So this was this was like 4.5 out of 5. This is a really solidly done issue for Wonder Woman #9. Moving along, DC Presents, or DC Universe Presents, whatever the hell it's called, #9. We have Savage. We have Vandal Savage. This I thought was a very rote. This is also James Robinson who wrote this issue. Who did some really good work on Earth 2, the first issue of Earth 2, but this comic, it's Vandal Savage has been captured by the FBI, and one of their lead profilers actually turns out to be Vandal Savage's daughter, who's changed her name to Sage. And it's this very kind of Hannibal Lecter, Clarice Starling kind of motif that's going on in here, which just really kind of killed it for me right off the bat, because I didn't think Silence of the Lambs was that interesting to begin with as far as the film is concerned, and to see it play out in this kind of very kind of cliched way, it just really bothered me. It was, especially reading, seeing Vandal Savage, and on the cover, it's Vandal Savage and his daughter, and so the first thing that goes through my mind, oh, they're gonna bring back Scandal Savage, and of course it's not. It's this other daughter that he's had more recently. And so that was, it was a big disappointment from that end, but just all around, it was I think it was just a bad issue, and so I won't be continuing with this arc. That was about maybe a 2 out of 5, because it had some interesting things in it, but more than not, it just didn't do anything for me. What else came out this week? Oh, sorry. So, Fantastic Four 605.1. I thought this was a really interesting issue. It's another of the .1 issues that is supposed to give you a good kind of kickoff to, to going forward with a comic book that you may not be that familiar with. That's apparently the whole point of the .1s. But this is not a .1 issue. This is basically, it's Jonathan Hickman exercising his right to tell kind of an alternate timeline tale of the Fantastic Four. Because basically what we have is, it's basically, what if Reed Richards was actually an SS officer and a scientist for the Nazis, and he actually, it's it's interesting. I mean, he's trying to work on a plan to get to outer space first, to kind of win that frontier for the Fuhrer, and and he's trying to put together all of these, and all of the characters, they have different names and everything like that, but they sound similar to the characters that exist, with the exception of Ben Grimm. His name is the same, but basically he sees this this young man kind of figures out the last piece of this puzzle that Reed's been looking into, and of course it's Victor Von Doom. And then in a really fucked up little segment here, basically what Reed does is he cuts out Victor's brain and puts it into part of his own. He basically expands his own brain with part of Victor Von Doom. So we have the whole the rocket flight, the cosmic rays, and we have basically once they get back to Earth, Ben Grimm is this very monstrous creature. The character of Susan Storm seems to be a creature made of fire. Johnny seems to be a creature made, not a creature, but a being made of ice. And then there's Reed and his kind of super intellect. And he's devised, basically he has, he kind of stands by as Hitler is killed in front of the world as they're making this announcement. And, he kills, and then Reed kills Ben, Susan, and Johnny. And so I don't know if this, and then it, goes off into this whole other idea of him meeting these other Reeds. So whether or not this Reed Richards, this Nazi Reed Richards, is supposed to be one of the Reeds that were dealt with in in FF, I don't know. That's really where it kind of left me. It's like, because again, Jonathan Hickman, he's a really, really smart guy, and he's a very, kind of high concept writer. Everything that he does is definitely not for the lowest common denominator. He's always shooting for kind of the smartest person out there, or at least the person that thinks most like him, in my opinion. So that's what seems to be going on in this issue, and is that he's just kind of, he's doing this because he can. And that's why it's a .1 issue and it has no continuity with anything else, really. It's really interesting, but it's, I just thought it was just way too bizarre. So, I mean, for points, I still give it a 4 out of 5 because it is still really smart and it is done well. I just don't think it really had any real meaning as a .1 issue. So, Winter Soldier, number 5. Now, this is again, I'm sorry, again, if you can hear my fan, my fucking virus scan is running right now. I keep trying to kill it and turn it off, but whatever. So, Winter Soldier number 5. So we basically have kind of the final showdown, if you will, with, on one side we have Black Widow, of course Bucky and Natasha are going to face off against Lucia von Bardas and the Red Ghost and and one of the sleepers, one of the sleeper agents, to basically stop the Doom bots from launching these nukes. And so there's some great quipping by Doom, because I mean, Brubaker, he wrote the Books of Doom miniseries. So this is a character that he's pretty familiar with. He really knows how to write in Doom's voice. And so we have, this kind of, like I said, this really great little, zingers that Doom keeps flinging out there, particularly in this issue against Nick Fury. He says, I don't know, is Agent Fury, Colonel Fury? I can't keep track of how many times you've been promoted or demoted. So I just thought that again, and it's just things like that are kind of peppered throughout the beginning. And then of course, Doom does what he does best, which is to create something really cool and kind of impossible, and it transports them directly to where the Latvian silos are that they're looking to take control of. So, and then there's this massive fight with Doom and the apes that the Red Ghost controls, and also Black Widow is kind of joining in on that fight as well. And then, but we have Bucky's singular purpose is to find the other, former KGB agent, this Agent Dmitri, that has been kind of fooled, tricked into working for Red Ghost and Lucia, and and basically his fight is with him. Now this was a really interesting issue, and it was really well done with the exception of the art. I did not care for the art, for Butch Guice's art at all. It seemed really kind of scribbled in a lot of places and just kind of thrown in there. So it was kind of disappointing, because Breitweiser's been doing the other issues, and his art's been fantastic. So it just didn't work for me here. So what was it? I can't keep track of all these different artists, man. This is getting to a point where it's kind of pissing me off, because I just want there to be some consistency with a creative team. I want somebody to consistently do the art for an issue. So that was a 4 out of 5 for Winter Soldier #5. Now on to the more interesting stuff, the stuff that I thought was really interesting and new, and not necessarily as good as some of the stuff I've talked about. Because, like I said, I think that the issue of Wonder Woman was terrific. But we have a new comic from Image, this new comic, Dancer, by Nathan Edmondson and Nick Klein on art. Now, I'm not familiar with the work of Nathan Edmondson, so I couldn't tell you anything about what he may have done in the past, anything. But this is basically a tale of an assassin named Alan Fisher, which to me isn't that. No, it's Sam Fisher. Isn't Sam Fisher that's the main character of Sleeper Cell, or not Sleeper Cell, Splinter Cell. Excuse me, the video game. So yeah, but even the characters seem to kind of remind me of Sam Fisher. But we have Alan Fisher. He is a government assassin, and he has kind of this very kind of Clooney-esque look. Got the kind of the salt and pepper hair and everything like that. And he's what we see at the beginning is probably one of the coolest assassination scenes I've ever seen in a comic, as far as a rifle shot anyway is concerned. But I loved how they showed without it showing like the trajectory of the bullet or anything like that. But it's basically, we're seeing this cafe in Italy, and we have this, this guy sitting at this very posh restaurant. Somebody's pouring him a glass of wine, and then the wine flow into the glass is interrupted, popped by this bullet. And that touch was so awesome. I just thought that was great. I thought that was wonderfully executed, if you'll pardon the pun. But then we have Alan. He's going to see his lady love, Quinn, this Irish ballerina who's also working in Milan as part of a dance company. and they're going to go out to dinner together and talk about, things that they like, talk about things that they want to do, and so on and so forth. And then Alan just gets a weird feeling, says, we got to get out of here right now. So he, the police want to stop him and ask him some questions. He kind of, fights his way out of there and brings Quinn with him. And they finally get out of range, if you will, or get away from what he's got this bad feeling about. And then, of course, he spills the truth to his lady love, and tells her that he's a government assassin. He's a shooter. They didn't work for the he didn't work for the military. He just worked for the government. And then when they're trying to get away from, I'm assuming, what are other would-be assassins, they're getting popped, headshots from a sniper. So he doesn't know what's going on, but he needs. Well, no, I'm sorry. This happened before they got on the tube or the underground or the subway, whatever you want to call it. And so he gets back to his house to get an old school PPK and a pair of binoculars. And he's looking for the sniper, gets a good look at him, and he says, no, that's impossible. That is totally impossible. We have, what he's seeing. And apparently what he's seeing, this person with the rifle, the sniper, is him. And that was where it was like, okay, we've got something really interesting going on right now. It was really short. I felt that this was just a terribly short issue, especially with what Image has been doing lately, with, these very long issues, like, of course, Morning Glories, 32 pages, a lot of their other stuff, Manhattan Projects, Secret, these are all really dense works. And then we have this, which seems like it was just over like that. Now, it's a good pace, but again, and I know there's a lot left to be answered, but it just didn't give me a chance to feel like, okay, I don't know, I'm interested in what happens, but I don't know these characters, I don't really care about them at all, so I want to get to, but the only thing that's bringing me back is I want to know what happens next. And so, by that token, I would give it's a very solid 3.5 out of 5, more towards 4, because I am very intrigued. I think whatever ideas are going on here are pretty strong, but there needed to be something more of a hook, more of a grab beyond just, okay, very very slight character moments, and then boom, here's action. So moving along, so we have The Secret Service, #2, by Mark Millar and Dave Gibbons. Of course, and we have Matthew Vaughn as the co-plotter of this. And basically what we have here is we have Jack, the super spy, and we have his nephew Gary. And as we saw at the end of the last issue, he wants his nephew to get out of the shithole that he lives in the south of London and become a spy like him, because he sees this potential that Gary is just pissing away. But how the issue actually opens, it opens with this big group wedding in Hawaii, and where especially we have, this is a very kind of Millar moment, and as we saw in the beginning of the first issue, where we have the whole kind of saving and then death of Mark Hamill, we have this this massive group wedding. 50 couples are getting married, and there's this clandestine, whatever this operation is, to test this device in this big yacht that's offshore. And so they turn it on, and basically all 50 couples start killing each other. And that's how it's, and then, so there's, And we have this character that apparently it sounds like that he designed the device, but he just doesn't want to, this character James, but doesn't really know, doesn't really want to see what's going on. And then we have this scene where, of course, afterwards, so I'm sorry that I started kind of a bad place here, but then we have this this moment where they're in this bar, where Gary and Jack are in this bar, and Jack is basically telling them about his, his real life as a super spy, and Gary just doesn't believe a word that he's saying. And then, of course, this one big asshole starts mouthing off to him, and says, posh, fag like you, or whatever it is, shouldn't be in a bar like this. And so he just, basically, Jack just, kicks seven shades of shit out of these guys, makes, very small order out of them. And so basically we get, this kind of intel through this very kind of interesting, Jack puts on these special glasses, and he's actually watching this, kind of almost like, this big kind of Times Square-esque billboard. I'm assuming that it's in, like, Leicester Square or whatever, Piccadilly Circus, something like that. And it's a McDonald's ad billboard, like one of those electronic billboards. But he's watching like this briefing of what his next mission will be. It's kind of Mission Impossible, James Bond-esque sort of thing, and that's and so they get to go to the base where Gary is going to be training, and he basically meets this kind of very Q-esque character, and they're manufacturing all these different all these different types of weapons and everything like that. And then the next thing we see is Gary is out in the middle of this area in London, and he's begging for change. Basically when he's just thought that he's going to kind of been being thrown into, he's just going to kind of magically become like this James Bond character like his Uncle Jack. He's, basically he's going to be having to learn how to basically take advantage, not take advantage of people, but to learn how to basically get things from people that they don't want to give, like spare change. And that his assignment is to collect like 1,000 pounds by the end of the day, or something to that effect. And then, then over the course of like the next week, he's going to be learning mime and stuff like that. So basically, I mean, the training is not as glamorous as one might think. So this was a really interesting touch. I thought that was just a really cool kind of twist on the super spy genre, how to learn to be the super spy, the kind that can kill any man and fuck any woman. To be James Bond, essentially, is what Jack already is, and what Jack wants Gary to be. So, just all in all, just a really fun issue. Of course, Dave Gibbons' art is absolutely terrific. Millar really seems to have a really solid, a really solid new series on his hand, at least a new mini-series, anyway. So this was a very, very solid 4.5 out of 5 for me. And now we're pretty much moving on to our books of the week, of which there are 4. And one of them is Daredevil number 13. Now, this issue, we've got Koi Pham doing the penciling. Again, sad that it's not some of the other previous artists that we had, like Marcus Martin. Really love to see him back. Or, fuck, I'm going to punch myself in the head because I can't remember their names. The Riveras. Paco Rivera. But we have, basically here, we have Daredevil. Well, we first open up, we have Foggy in the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, and he's kind of sitting in Matt's office in silence. Something has very clearly upset him, and he's kind of going over in his head things that Matt has said before about how he's now choosing to cope with the way that things have been going. You know, because Matt has basically said, look, I don't want to be the guy from the kind of Miller, Bendis, Nocenti, Brubaker tales anymore. I don't want to be that guy, the guy who basically just, you know, gets kicked around, you know, the self-destructive punching bag, guilt-ridden, everything like that. He doesn't want to be that guy anymore. He wants to be a little bit more carefree. He wants to have a little bit more fun. And whether or not he's in denial, well, that's, you know, or whether he's just not dealing, but this is how Matt says how he chooses to cope. But Foggy has found something in Matt's office, in his desk drawer, and he apparently cannot believe what he's found, but we don't find out what it is in this issue. Instead, what we get is, since we've seen the return of Black Spectre in the previous issue, as they interrupted the kind of hot date that he was having with Kirsty McDuffie, or Kirsten, however pronounced, whatever it is. But you know, we have, you know, Daredevil. He is, you know, he has gotten it into his head that, okay, well, this is what he needs to do. He needs to get the Omega Drive and get it out into the open, so that everybody comes gunning for him. Black Spectres, the Byzantine agents, the AIM, Hydra, the Secret Empire, you know, all kind of fighting it out as to who's going to get the Omega Drive. And so this is in the middle of, well, it doesn't really, you know, say specifically where it is, but it seems like it's Times Square. And so again, they're all gunning for him. They're kind of, you know, and, you know, Daredevil is kind of sticking and moving. He's, you know, making all of his moves, and he, you know, he's got, you know, basically, he's pinned down, you know, because the, you know, the Secret Empire, they're using, like, kind of Doctor Strange's magic. You know, there's, you know, all these different attacks from AIM and from Hydra and from the Agence Byzantine. And, you know, like, there's a telepathic attack and a magical attack, and then, of course, the actual physical attacks. And then all of a sudden, Black Spectre comes in, and they kind of beat the hell out of everybody else, and they, you know, and they kind of beat up Daredevil, and they steal the Omega Drive. Bad news, right? Maybe not so much. There's so much of this issue that I want to spoil, but I won't. Because this issue is just, again, Wade kicking so much ass on this title that it's really hard to believe. Now, this whole thing with Foggy has gotten me a little bit distressed that we might get a return to less of the Scarlet Swashbuckler that Wade has kind of reinvigorated this title with, and kind of back to the darker stuff. Now, that's, I mean, it makes sense, of course, because that is part of who Daredevil has been for the last couple decades. But it's just nice to see that change. It's nice to see them moving away from that into a comic book that is a little bit lighter, still has all the gravity that the previous, you know, that the previous works by Brubaker and Bendis and Nocenti and Miller have done, but, you know, just keeping this little wink and a smile edge to it. So it's, I don't want to lose that, at least not yet. I want to continue down this path for a little bit longer. Now, whatever this MacGuffin is that Foggy has found, I don't know what it is, but it may be something that is much, you know, it's made out to be much more of a big deal than it actually is. I don't know, and I'm sure that we'll find out soon. But this issue, just great. I just wasn't a huge fan of Khoi Pham's art. It's good, but it's not as good as what we've seen from the Riveras, and of course from Marcus Martin, who I think is probably one of the best comic book artists working right now. So very solid 4.5 out of 5 for Daredevil number 13. And we have Manhattan Projects number 3, another Jonathan Hickman super smart title, where basically we have, this is the issue about the actual Manhattan Project, the bomb. And so we have, all the different doctors kind of working together. We have FDR's death, because the scientists are all trying to figure out how to make this device, this bomb. And of course, Dr. Feynman comes in to see Einstein again. Einstein, who's just kind of staring at his monolith as he does, and he says, I don't know if we should make it, more like this or more like that. And then Einstein simply says, why not do both? We can. Why don't we? And so then we have the death of FDR, and we have this very bizarre, almost this very arcane ritual that's being performed in the George Washington Memorial, but it's actually the George Washington Masonic Memorial, in which we reveal that this guy who is in all of these, this very silly outfit of, with all of the Freemason symbolism and, with all of the Freemason symbols, I should say, and everything, it's actually Harry Truman. And the Secret Service has come in to basically take him away and to make sure that he gets sworn in as the President of the United States. And basically what we have FDR's body, and we have the different doctors like Fermi and so on and so forth are going to, they're basically going to jam this wire, this big thing into FDR's brain, and FDR becomes the first official artificial intelligence, because they are actually getting, they're going to start getting information out of him. And then we have Truman, who is being briefed now by Dr. Oppenheimer, Joseph Oppenheimer, not necessarily Robert Oppenheimer, and he's basically being told that this Manhattan Projects program, Truman is being told by Oppenheimer that the Manhattan Projects exists. It's essentially, they are, it's, that he's been kind of intentionally kept in the dark. And General Groves, who we've seen before, basically calls him and says, okay, look, we're going to end the war. We have this bomb. It's going to basically, it's going to destroy this huge, it's going to destroy the yield is going to be massive. It's going to destroy an entire city in Japan. And so Truman basically says, well, how long do I have to decide? And basically Groves tells him, well, you've got a few minutes. How about that? And we have this flashback to Groves earlier on in the issue where he's being talked to by his father about how basically no one exceeds the reach of the righteous. That even God fears the righteous. And basically the whole time that Truman is being given to make this decision, Truman is telling, don't drop the bomb, don't drop the bomb, don't drop the bomb, and Groves just tunes it out. Says, nope, we're going to drop this bomb. This is going to usher in a new era. Now, what's really nice about this issue, also, not just everything that goes on in it, because there's some crazy super science fucked up shit going on here, and it's just, it has all of these great, kind of shadow government things going on in it, but it also has, it gives us the cast of characters. as we see, Einstein and Feynman and Oppenheimer and Fermi and Daglan, who's actually the bit, the radioactive guy, and Werner von Braun and Leslie Groves, and FDR as the first AI. So it's just, it's an incredible mixture of ideas, and Nick Pitaro's art is just terrific. Very, very well suited to a comic like this. It's very reminiscent of Frank Quietly's art, and I think I've mentioned that before. But just terrific stuff. Great comic. 5 out of 5 for Manhattan Project number 3. So on to our another very close contest for Book of the Week. I said this was going to be short, didn't I? I see that we're at 50 minutes. And that is... I'm going to show this, I don't care. And it is Saga number 3. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples, again, just kicking all sorts of ass on this comic. Again, this is, it's an easy 5 out of 5. Basically what we have here is, we have, our new parents, and they are being confronted by the horrors. And the horrors are not quite what they seem. And of course, there's a lot of very snarky comments being made by this young girl, Isabel, who is kind of certainly not the leader of the horrors, but she's, basically wandering around. She's just a torso with arms and a head, no legs, and and when when mother calls them horrors, that's kind of a racist term. Is that what you call all indigenous peoples? Because where they are is, they are the spiritual defenders of Cleve, as Isabel says, and so basically what we have going on here is that Marco, from the last issue, he has a wound that he's suffering from and he's dying. And he has a magical, he has a spell that he can cast, but he needs snow in order to do it. And, of course, nobody knows where to find it except for Isabel and get them to where they need to go. But basically, what Isabel is offering in exchange for this information is, I can get you what you need for a price. I want to get out of here. But in order to get out of here, I have to be bonded with the soul of a living native. And of course, she's talking about Hazel, the daughter, the baby. And we get a bit of backstory into exactly how Isabel came to be what she is, and we deal once again with Prince Robot IV, and and whatever one of these aliens is, and so we have Alana. Basically, that's what Prince Robot IV is investigating, is how Alana came to fall in love with Marco and break him out of prison so they could run away together. Because this has caused, a pretty big kind of galactic rift, which is why everybody is after them. And he shows this other prisoner who, basically that Alana was guarding, shows him a book that hopefully the prisoner will recognize. And it's like a futuristic romance novel, and it even has the whole kind of bare-chested man, big bosomed, fiery-haired woman on it, and it's just it's so great. And then just these little moments between Prince Robot and how basically pissed off he gets with this prisoner, because he starts, talking about how, this prisoner, how they killed so many of Prince Robot's kind in one of these battles. And so, like, we get more, and then we also have the Stalk and the Will. we have the two bounty hunter mercenary assassins, if you will, that have been hired to hunt down the child, and we have the lion cat, and I mean, just some tremendously funny stuff going on here. But of course, we also have this tremendously smart stuff, and of course, this kind of cliffhanger. It's not really a cliffhanger, but it is one of those typical kind of ends of Brian K. Vaughan issues where it's like, what did you just say? And it's very easy to see how someone like Joss Whedon really regarded the works of Brian K. Vaughan, because that's ultimately why he stepped in as the writer for Runaways after Vaughan left the comic. And he said that was one of the few comics. Runaways was one of the few comics that Whedon actually would make time to go and pick up, because just Runaways was very attractive to him. And of course, but a lot of Vaughan's work, like Y the Last Man and like Ex Machina, they all have a very similar sense of humor. They all have these very excellent, wonderful sensibilities to them, as far as storytelling is concerned, as far as the characterization is concerned. How each issue gives you a glimpse into a new part of a character's life, or a new character that is given life. And it's just, that's really where Vaughan gets me personally. How he gets his hooks in me is that he creates these great characters and puts them in these really almost absurd situations, but how he always has dramatic forward motion in all of his comics. There's never a dull issue of anything that Vaughan has ever done, in my opinion. And I've read pretty much everything he's ever done, at least the big things, of course, and some of the smaller things. So, like I said, never a dull issue, and certainly never a dull moment. Either action, humor, character, just really just about perfect. And so it's a very, very solid 5 out of 5. And of course, we have Fiona Staples, just rushing art on this title. It's just beautiful to look at for no other reason. So now we come to pick of the week. As long as this comic keeps being as good as it is, it's going to be a pick of the week. And again, I don't care to show you again, that is The Shadow #2. Now this is the Cassaday cover, of course. Covers this week. We also we had another from Alex Ross, we had another from Jay Lee. We have Cassaday cover. We had a Ryan Sook cover, and of course another Howard Chaykin cover. And of course then there's the Dynamic Forces Francesco Francavilla covers, which I fucking love, but my comic store, they're too hard to order because they're so expensive. Because just each one of these issues is $15 from Dynamic Forces. But man, I mean, if I literally have like made a wallpaper of all of Francavilla's covers for The Shadow. And because he's a huge fan of pulp characters, and he, and it's kind of insane to me that he's not doing art on this, which I did actually tweet about and got some responses. Now, Aaron Campbell is doing a terrific job on art. It's not to diminish anything that Aaron Campbell is doing, but it just seems like Francesco Francavilla should really be doing this comic because of the obvious love and affection that he has for The Shadow. If you've ever visited his blog spot, you'll see all sorts of really cool works dedicated to The Shadow. So, like I said, it's just kind of strange that he's not doing it. But basically what we have here that starts out is that Lamont Cranston and Margot Lane are on the Pan Am Clipper going to China. And we get to see, again, this is kind of split The narrative of this comic is very split between, you know, what we have around as far as the characters are concerned and the action is concerned. So it's a very cleverly constructed book, just off the get-go. So we have, like I said, you know, they're on this, you know, they're on this trip. They're on the cutter. Everybody else seems to have gone to sleep for the evening, but Margot and Lamont are still up talking and drinking champagne. You know, Margot is really enjoying this. And then we go back to our two Army intelligence pals, and, you know, Finnegan and the other character, and unfortunately I'd forgotten his name because we don't get too much into them. But basically, that Finnegan is going to also be going to Shanghai, or going to China, but in a much different mode of transportation. We see the kind of disdain that Finnegan has for someone like Lamont Cranston. You know, rich, spoiled, so on and so forth. Obviously has no idea who he really is, and you know, just thinks that he's just another, you know, rich college boy who just doesn't really, you know, has a complete devil-may-care playboy attitude about this whole massive, you know, movement by the Japanese into China. And then we have some discussions about the Kondo brothers between Lamont and Margot, and then we have our first reference officially in this comic as to, okay, we're at that point in time when you met the Kondo brothers from the bad old days, is what Margot says. And, you know, then asks them, you know, at that point in time, were you pretending to, you know, were you Lamont Cranston, or were you Kent Allard pretending to be Lamont Cranston? And basically he says, it doesn't matter what I called myself, I was a monster. And, you know, he says, you know, basically, you know, I told you more than once that I have much to atone for, Miss Lane. The evil in men's hearts found ample ground to grow in mine. So again, we get, you know, this mystery of what was Kent Allard before he became Lamont Cranston and before he became the Shadow. So, basically, and then all of a sudden they are confronted by Nazis in the Clipper, and it begins a firefight on the plane. And then we have our other, you know, the other Kondo brother, the one that's still alive, meeting with General Akamatsu, and they're in Shanghai together, and, you know, they're talking. And of course, there's the implication that that General Akamatsu is a pedophile. You know, he says, you know, that there are a pair of youths upstairs waiting for him, neither older than 10. And, you know, they talk about, you know, his brother's death, and then they talk about that man who is most likely responsible for his death is someone who goes by the moniker of the Shadow, who is very likely, as Kondo says, either a man calling himself Lamont Cranston or Kent Allard, but neither is a guy that we want after us. So I've kind of outsourced this to this this kind of bandit named Buffalo Wong. Now, in the middle of all this, again, we go back to the Clipper, and, you know, there's this massive firefight going on, and, you know, Margot's trying to get everything. She's trying to get the pilots to, you know, to help. You know, basically letting them know there are assassins on the plane. And of course, here we have the first appearance officially in this particular comic of the Shadow of the Laugh, which is something I didn't get from the last issue, and I was a little bit pissed off that I didn't get that. How could you not have the laugh? But in this issue, we have the laugh. And it comes at a perfect time. And we have more examples of Lamont's, or the Shadow's, ability to not only cloud men's minds, but to see into them and control them. And basically he has kind of one man left to go, instead of kind of blowing him away, which you kind of normally do, but he makes this, he starts asking this Nazi, "What are you doing to your mother? It's the woman that gave birth to you. Why are you elbow deep into this woman you love so much, your own mother?" And so, of course, this guy starts, absolutely freaking out. And of course, that's when the Shadow comes in and breaks the neck. And then the Shadow pulls out all the stops as far as influencing his will on someone else. It is magical what Ennis is doing with the character of the Shadow, because he's not taking any specific idea of the Shadow. He's kind of taking them all, and then, of course, upon that, he's adding his own kind of signature style. Not only his narrative style, but also his own ideas about, I think that he very purposely wanted to put this into the later 30s, so that it would be more the time of the war, so that the Shadow wasn't going to be facing kind of the pulpy heroes that we might have seen in the past from Walter Gibbons' original stories, but actually more realistic villains, like Major Khan. And of course, we don't get to see Buffalo Wong in this issue, but it's referenced that he's a pretty powerful guy. And, it's the type of guy that can maybe put a real serious dent in the Shadow's plans, if not entirely a dent, kind of a final dent, if you will. But just another fantastic issue of a fantastic character, and it doesn't answer a lot of questions about who the Shadow, what exactly their involvement in this is, and what exactly the Shadow's plans are. But it shows the Shadow doing what he does, which is, it's just amazing. I love what Garth is doing with this book so much, and he's going to be here in Phoenix for the Comic-Con this weekend, and I'm not going to be able to go. But, and of course, I can't even get any one of my variant covers of issue 1 for him to sign, because unfortunately, he's going to be one of the people that actually charges money for signatures, or for autographs, I should say. So that kind of pisses me off, but it's his prerogative, after all, because he's made what, in my estimation, is still the best comic book, the best long-running comic book of the last couple decades, which was Preacher, and has also done quite a lot of other really great stuff. So, like I said, if anybody deserves a couple extra bucks in his pocket, it's Garth Ennis. So, Shadow beyond 5 out of 5 for this week, Book of the Week. Anyway, so I hope that you have actually followed me here from the Shadow Gallery main page. Because like I said, we're just trying this one out for size, seeing how it looks on me. So, if you're here, please feel free to subscribe. If you are coming here and wondering what the fuck is going on, don't worry about it. I'm still going to be putting up, like I said, this is really going to depend on how many views and how many subscribers I get from this viewing. So if you're here and you're watching, that means you subscribe to me on the regular Shadow Gallery page. I'm hoping that you will also subscribe to this one. That'd be nice. And I'm hoping that you've enjoyed this video. It probably would have been a lot better planned out had I taken the time to better plan it out, but time is in short supply right now, or at least it was this last week. I had my wife's birthday and all the things that we did there, and so this is just, again, this is just me doing, kind of a half-assed job, and I'm sorry. Normally I am better prepared than this, but like I said, I just really wanted to make a video where I could just kind of run on and go as long as I liked. And hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've gotten something out of it. Hopefully maybe you're thinking about some new books to read or some books to drop. I don't know. But if you're not reading the Shadow and Saga and Manhattan Projects, you're out of your fucking minds. So start reading those because they're awesome. You can trust me. I'm James Donnelly. I'm your host of the Shadow Gallery. And I'm here, as always, to bring you new comics, bitches! So, thank you for tuning in, those of you who do. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like or dislike, whatever. Let me know what you're feeling. Let me know what you're thinking. I really want to hear your thoughts. So, you followed the link to get here. You followed my little jelly bean trail. I hope you liked it. This is James Donnelly for the Shadow Gallery, signing off and reminding you to stay in the shadows.